I don't think we want to lose weight. We want to release the weight. We're not losing something like we lose our keys because we want to re-find it. We don't necessarily want to find the weight again. It's not like a loss in that way. We're going to release it. And so I like to play with the language of it because it impacts our perspective of ourselves and our bodies and the world around us.
Hey, everybody. This is Dr. Lori Shemek.
And I'm Omar Cumberbatch. You're listening to This Podcast Burns Fat. Hey, Lori. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Omar. Oh, my goodness. 2020. Here we are.
Yes. It's so exciting to have a new year, new decade. A lot of good things to look forward to this year.
Really is. I know. A new year, new decade. 2020 clarity. That's what my dad said anyway.
Yeah. You know, I heard 2020 vision.
Yes, right. I think that's where he probably heard it too.
Yeah. No, it's going to be cool. And we're going to promise the audience that we're going to deliver on our end to get them to where they want to go as far as their weight loss goals and their health and wellness. So I'm excited about it.
Me
excited
too.
to see the journey.
I am too. And, you know, we want to wish all of you a very happy new year. And so we have a whole lineup, don't we, Omar, of top experts and people that are really going to get you on that weight loss success train and optimal health train. So happy new year.
Yes. Happy new year again. And I know like if the listeners had a holiday season like I did, they're going to need a little bit of help getting the sugar out their system. So, you know, we did this last year and I appreciate all the responses that I did get for this. So I'm definitely going to plug my 5-day sugar challenge where we eliminate sugar in 5 days. And it gives you tons of, you know, recipes and a little bit of motivation to kick that habit. If anybody needs it, they can go to omarcumberbatch.com and just sign up for the 5-day sugar challenge. Cause like, I know that I overindulged in that and I'm in the process of like detoxing at this point. And so it's very helpful. I hope, people jump on it and get with that.
I remember last year was very successful. So this year it's going to be probably even more impactful. And, you know, and it's hard during the holidays. There's so much sugar. And you know what I do for a living, right? So guess what? All my neighbors bring over lots of, you know, just baked cookies and cupcakes that are hot out of the oven.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just really hard. So,
no, it is.
So congrats on that program. That's great.
And just the audience knows, me and Lori are humans, so you know it happens. Don't beat yourself up over it. We just gotta get back on track.
Right, that's the key.
So today's guest is Kristin Grayce McGary. She is a fantastic resource. What do you think, Lori?
Oh, she is fantastic. Yes, she has a program within her latest book called Holistic Keto for Gut Health, which actually resets your metabolism. And it not only helps you lose weight, but it helps optimize your health and your gut health, which, you know, if you're a regular listener, you know how important that is. It's in terms of your weight and your health. It's essentially the epicenter of everything that goes on in your body health-wise. So yeah, she was packed full of information and I loved her. She was so much fun and really great.
Yeah, so let's jump into the show.
Okay.
Hey, Kristin, how are you today? Welcome to our show.
Hello. Thanks so much for having me.
Hi, Kristin. Welcome.
So for everybody who doesn't know, Kristin was actually on my show, the Health Coach Academy podcast, and we had a fantastic time talking about a lot of different stuff, but we're going to absolutely get into her new book that's coming out and really about like the ketogenic diet and how it really repairs your gut. So we're going to talk about a little bit about that. So Kristin, can you do us a favor and just introduce yourself? Let us know a little bit about yourself and how you got to this part in your journey.
And your new book.
Yes.
Thanks. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Omar and Lori, for having me. And
Absolutely.
I'm really excited to connect with your listeners and share some great information for them. I go by Kristin Grayce. That's my first and my middle name. And I started my health journey when I was very, very young, like about 2. I always knew I wanted to be some kind of doctor and help people, empower people around their health, but I really didn't understand how I was going to do that. And I was raised in a family in the Midwest who eventually moved to Arizona, and everyone in my family was clinically obese, and it was our normal. And even at the age of 10, I was a big girl. And it was around the age of 10, 11 that I had a very significant shift in my body and my weight. And I was so young, I wasn't aware that I was overweight. And I went through a shift and started swimming and biking to the swimming pool. And all of a sudden I lost 10 pounds. And as a young girl, that was a big deal. And I didn't understand why my clothing didn't fit me anymore. And nobody was really talking about it. But my mom and dad, they were always doing yo-yo diets and all sorts of things, trying to lose weight. Weight was something that was talked about in my home. And there was a lot of shame around being fat and overweight. And so I had a lot of awareness around that, but also confusion. And later in my life, I got really, really sick. And I gained about 30, 35 pounds and really struggled with my weight because it was health related, and was confused about nutrition. And I was a vegan for a while and vegetarian, and thought that was really good for my body. And kind of on my own health journey through Asian medical school. And I had started off in Western medicine. I learned a lot about nutrition and how food can be medicine, and the biochemistry, how we process nutrients, and began to change my own life and gain really empowering tools to shift my own health picture, which included looking at food as medicine, looking at weight, looking at how my family of origin had held fat and being overweight and food.
Had you lost your weight up to this point?
After I started my healing journey, I did. I ended up losing the weight then, and it just fell off naturally. I didn't have to do anything special because I uncovered the root of what was going on. And I think a lot of people on their own weight journey get stuck in the superficial, I got to eat a certain way and I have to work out. And they may not get to the root of why the weight is there in the first place. And once I did that, then the weight fell away, and I ended up shifting from Western medical school to Asian medical school, and continued my exploration of food as medicine. And of course, write a lot about that in my first 2 books.
That's really, really a great story, really inspirational, in the end. And so why do you think people aren't losing weight?
It's a really good question, Lori. I have a lot of people who come to me who say they'd like to lose, 20 pounds, 40 pounds, 100 pounds. I recently worked with someone who has about 100 pounds of weight to release. I'll say not lose, but to release. First of all, just to play with the language of it. I don't think we want to lose weight. We want to release the weight. We're not losing something like we lose our keys, because we want to re-find it. We don't necessarily want to find the weight again. It's not like a loss in that way. We're going to release it. And so I like to play with the language of it because it impacts our perspective of ourselves and our bodies and the world around us. So secondly, I believe that there are many reasons why people may not be losing weight or releasing weight, and they haven't explored it. One common reason is insulin resistance, which is also termed metabolic syndrome. People can have insulin issues to which they're unaware, and this can really be a block to someone losing weight. And they may go to the doctor, who may or may not actually order the proper tests for them. They may not understand how to read those tests. I share functional blood chemistry analysis, so I have a unique way of both ordering and interpreting labs that can show the root issues. So insulin resistance is one. Next, I would say unstable blood sugar, which is different than insulin resistance. Mm-hmm. And if someone's blood sugar is spiking and dropping and spiking and dropping, this can lead to hormone imbalances, which could then feed various kinds of cravings, food cravings. It could affect impulse control. People may feel ravenous one minute and still want to keep eating even if they're full because their hormones are off. So that's another common issue. I've also found many people have subclinical thyroid issues. So on their regular labs, a doctor usually orders, 1 to 3 tests to check thyroid function. But there's actually 10 tests for thyroid function. And if someone isn't looking at all of them and then trained to understand what the healthy reference ranges are, which are different than the reference ranges that show up on the common lab,
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, they may have subclinical thyroid issues. And this can really be a challenge to weight loss. If your thyroid isn't working, your metabolism isn't working, you're unable to process your foods well, what goes along with thyroid issues, subclinical, or even people who are medicated with thyroid drugs already may still have thyroid issues that aren't fully addressed with that medication. People classically don't make enough HCl stomach acid, so they're not breaking down their food, therefore absorbing it well, and that can cause weight issues as well.
That's fantastic, yeah.
There's more. I have over 28 reasons that I've identified why people have trouble releasing weight. It is true that eating the wrong foods for that person's specific metabolic needs and nutrient needs can be a factor. People can be eating at the wrong times or in the wrong way. They could be having too many or too few calories. There are people right now, I'm part of a bunch of different food, keto, nutritional groups on Facebook, and I see often people complaining of not losing weight because they're not eating enough. So their caloric intake is so low that their metabolism goes into this starvation mode, and they have trouble shedding excess tissue. And so that's another important factor. I've also found various forms of inflammation and hidden food sensitivities, people not eating enough micronutrients. That's in the vegetables, the leafy greens or the green powders. I see people eating too much low fat, thinking that that's better for them. And in low fat foods, often they're highly processed, and that can cause blocks to releasing weight. I've also found people can have unresolved trauma. In psychosomatic therapy, we call it issues in the tissues. And people have built up armoring in their tissues. I recently worked with a woman who's about 100 pounds overweight, and she got to the root of where that was coming from. And she realized that she had built up armoring in the form of excess tissue because she had trauma when she was a child. And this was a strategy of protection that she implemented unconsciously. And it worked for her for a while until she realized what was going on, and she had a lot of health challenges because of the excess weight. And she realized it was time to do a deeper dive and really get to the root of what was going on. And by heightening her awareness, these patterns started to shift for her, and it became easy to do what I call acts of self-love. And that included eating well, and that included movement practices that really brought her joy, and it included shifting her belief around food and her body and the way she wanted to show up in the world. So there can be many, many reasons why people aren't losing weight. It's not a one-size-fits-all, so to speak. People are very unique. And I like to get to the root. I think it's important. I like to empower people to get to the root for themselves.
No, you're absolutely right, Kristen. I'm glad that's why I really enjoy your book, is because it definitely takes a holistic approach. It touches a lot of different things outside of course, the food. But you did, stumble upon the ketogenic diet and the ketogenic lifestyle. How did that actually happen, and why was the ketogenic diet more beneficial than, say, the paleo and the primal diets that were kind of going on in the last like 7, 8 years?
Hmm. That's a great question, Omar. I believe that food is medicine, and therefore, some of these, what I'll call fad diets, catch fire and they really spread quickly. And I think that some of them can bring a lot of benefit to people, and some of them don't have much research behind them. And some people have great results, and other people don't. And what I appreciated about the keto approach is that there's some really great science behind it, that keto is not actually a new fad diet. Keto was discovered in the 1920s, and it was being used clinically by physicians to treat children that had certain kinds of seizure disorders that were not reacting well to medication. And it continues to be prescribed today by Western medical physicians for various health problems like seizures. And what they found in these children is that when they were on a ketogenic diet, some of them had a complete cure, alleviation of all seizure symptoms. Their brain changed. And so there was that merited more research and science to get involved with, hey, how does this work? And how is a healthy high fat diet helping these kids and their brains? And so, what I appreciate about the keto type diet is that there's great science behind it, that we get results pretty quickly with people. And my approach to it is not typical. It's not what I call the standard or typical keto diet, because my approach incorporates an emphasis on gut repair and gut health. And to me, this is taking keto to the next level. A lot of people on keto will consume a lot of dairy products and even processed high fat foods. There are people who do what is called quote unquote dirty keto, where they're eating a lot of processed junk food. But it is considered typical standard keto because it's high fat. So I've taken a different approach that includes healthy fats, omits inflammatory foods that upset the gut, that normal standard keto diets would promote. And one of those is dairy. In the beginning of gut repair, dairy is hugely inflammatory. It's actually inflammatory at all stages of gut health. And a lot of people don't understand that, because social media has done such a great job of promoting dairy. The Dairy Association has done an excellent job of advertising, got milk, strong bones, kind of grew up with some of these advertisements, and they stick in us and they're catchy, but they're not actually based in science. And that's where people get stuck in what they've been shown on social media. And so this keto approach that I'm taking really promotes gut health and removes the inflammatory foods that may be causing someone to hold on to extra weight or have other subclinical issues in their body or symptoms that are lingering.
No, I'm glad that you brought up that point, because I do think a lot of people who are on ketogenic diets do use those, like you said, dirty keto. Like, why even with that does traditional ketogenic diet still help in weight loss despite allowing for some of these like highly allergen, foods like dairy, for instance?
Oh, it's such a good question. I'm glad you're asking this, because I think a lot of people don't understand that, and they think, oh, well, I lost all the weight doing dirty keto, therefore I'm doing really well. But the challenge is that weight is only one piece of your health picture. And when you shift your metabolism, from being dependent on glucose and carbohydrates and glycogen storage into ketones and really getting your fuel from ketones and healthy fats. When you make that shift, your metabolism is going to use fats even if they're unhealthy. And that's why people will release and shed the weight. The challenge is that they're causing other damage. They're bringing in a lot more pesticides and chemicals, and these processed foods have additives and preservatives and MSG and food coloring. And these things really do damage the gut, and they damage the brain. There are people who do keto and they're doing a lot of artificial sweeteners. And if you just look on the label, it says it causes cancer in lab rats. Why would a human ever want to take anything that causes a cancer in anything? And so
exactly.
Yeah.
I totally.
That's another piece.
Yeah. It's important if you're going to optimize your health and weight, then you need to do it across the board, not just with weight only. So that was a really good point you made, that simply losing weight, yes, some of the markers are going to be more optimized, but still in the end, it's not as great as if you were to go full on and make complete healthy changes to your health.
Yes.
So we want to really reduce the inflammation in our body. And so you talk about traditional keto creating inflammation. So I'm curious as to what that is and how so.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So the traditional typical keto diet encourages foods that cause inflammation. One of those foods is dairy, and I mentioned that already. And others can be eggs. Eggs are big in keto. And eggs are also a very common food, a food that people are sensitive to. Usually people don't have a full-blown egg allergy, and if they do, they know it. They're very aware of it because they get a reaction pretty quickly, whether it's diarrhea or hives or stabbing gut pain. Usually people who have a strong or official allergy to eggs, they understand that already. A lot of people have what I call a hidden food sensitivity to eggs, and it's causing levels of inflammation in their body and their gut that they're unaware of. And this can be a challenge. And when people get off of some of the typical keto inflammatory foods, it allows their immune system to self-regulate. It allows their metabolism to work better. It allows their brain and their hormone system to function more highly and more optimally. And it can allow the weight to release even better, because weight is kind of another form of inflammation. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it the weight or the inflammation? Often they come together.
So, Kristin, I have to follow up. Don't lose your train of thought real quick, because I'm a big egg fan. What is it about eggs that, the problem? Because, again, maybe it is the marketing that it's like, a lot of people are saying it's the perfect food, blah, blah, blah. Like, what is it with eggs that cause these problems?
It's a great question. I think, and the answer is going to be multifaceted. So it depends on the person. I'm all about individuality. And I believe people have unique metabolisms that have been informed by their environment and their nutrition and what they've learned from their family of origin and the chemicals they were exposed to and the amount of hydration they had consistently and the amount of touch they had as an infant if they were held. All these things contribute to someone's health and how their metabolism and their brain function. And so I don't want to say across the board eggs are bad for everyone, because they're not. But they aren't necessarily the health food that everyone thinks they are. So I want to heighten people's awareness to pay more attention to foods that optimize gut health. And eggs, according to different teachings, especially from the German biological physicians that I studied with, taught that what they have seen clinically is that hen's eggs, cow's milk, and pork are 3 highly inflammatory foods. for the human body. And if you're looking now at our accessibility to eggs and the nutrient value in an egg that you pick up from the local grocery store versus one that came from a happy farm raised chicken that was free range and didn't eat any grain, they lived off of bugs, the yolk of that egg is going to be different. The nutrient level of that egg is going to be different. And I think the standard American eggs that most people are getting at, say, Walmart, lack a lot of those nutrients. And instead, they're full of things that people might be reacting to. So eggs on their own could be an issue, but I think also the eggs that are being produced in these, mass chicken farms where the chickens are in little cages and their wings and legs are cut off and they're pumped up with hormones and antibiotics, those eggs are definitely not so good for us.
No, and the meats that we're eating as well, that, we're ingesting an enormous amount of grain-fed animals, and which are very high in omega-6, which are then causing inflammation as well. So you can be on the keto diet, yet eating these conventional, if you will, meats and eggs, etc., and still get a whopping amount of omega-6. Mm-hmm. So
you're right on, Lori,
causing that inflammation as well. And so on the subject of inflammation, can you just tell our listeners what inflammation is so that maybe they might resonate with it if they have inflammation or not? How does someone know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's interesting because inflammation can be what I call subclinical. You may not understand what it feels like. Sometimes it can be hard to feel inflammation in your body. And I liken it to, say, dental decay. If you have bacteria in your mouth, you don't necessarily feel it until you've had enough of it that it's eaten away your tooth, and now you have a cavity and you might have some pain. But at the low level, at the low level, you often don't notice it until it compounds, and then boom, you get this symptom. The same I have found true for inflammation. Now, some people do know they have inflammation. They understand it because their knees hurt, their joints ache, they feel sluggish, they feel tired or exhausted, they have brain fog, they have gas and bloating. People can feel inflamed in their gut, they can feel puffy. Most people that are carrying extra tissue on their bodies are inflamed. Mm-hmm. You likely will not have extra tissue if you don't have a level of inflammation. Now, not all inflammation is bad. So I want to share that too. The kind we're talking about is the kind of inflammation that causes disease. But some inflammation in the way the body works is actually good. An example would be if you twisted your ankle or broke your ankle, it would become incredibly inflamed. And that's actually a protective mechanism so that you don't walk on that ankle till it heals. Right? And so the body has an ability to create inflammation as a kind of protection. The problem is that it might be doing this inappropriately. It might be saying, oh my gosh, I got to protect you. You just ate all of these pesticides and chemicals. I'm going to slow down your metabolism. I'm going to make you gain more fatty tissue, adipose tissue, so I can store the chemicals in it. Excuse me. We're going to keep you inflamed. So, your body's saying this so that I can protect you from the damaging effects of these chemicals or the glyphosates or, all these different things that someone may have ingested. And so that kind of inflammation, although the body is saying, well, I'm trying to protect you, it's actually causing other harmful symptoms of being overweight or cardiovascular disease or diabetes or joint inflammation, or, you're feeling bloated in your stomach, you feel puffy in your face or your throat, or you get up and you're kind of stiff and you can't move and you think, oh, well, I'm just getting older. No, you're not just getting older, you're inflamed. And I also want to add this really exciting piece to me around inflammation is that it's not only physical. I have found people are inflamed emotionally, and it can be seen and felt through physical symptoms of the body. People are pissed off at their boss, or they're not communicating well and getting their needs met in their marriage or their partnership, or they're having conflict with their kids, or they're having body images stuff and they're shaming themselves and they're inflamed from that perspective. So it's also important to look at inflammation from the psychosomatic perspective as well.
Mm-hmm. Amen. That's why, like I said, I love this book that talks about a lot of that as well. I do have to get back into this one because one of our guests recently were, and of course, me and Lori aren't fans of sugar, and I know that's one of the inflammatory foods that we consume, unfortunately. Can you give us your idea of why sugar is bad for you, and what are some tips that you suggest to help us kick the habit if we do have one?
Yes. I actually have a whole chapter on sugar and how to also beat sugar cravings in my keto book, in my new Holistic Keto for Gut Health book, a program for resetting your metabolism. And I'm really proud of that chapter because it's helped myself understand where cravings came from. And then I have another chapter, because especially for my family of origin, my mom was a sugar addict because she was stuffing her feelings. So I was raised eating Betty Crocker frosting right out of the can. And so sugar was just like another food to us. We had no thought of like sugar was bad, we should minimize this. And so I dedicated a whole chapter to that, and a whole chapter to introspective journaling work around sugar, around food, around our motivation for reaching for a certain food like sugar, and how to do a deeper exploration of where that's coming from and how to work with it. And so sugar does create an inflammatory response. And something I like to mention, not to scare people, but to inform people, because I believe knowledge is power. We have all of these organizations that want to promote and gain money and funding to prevent cancer, or treat cancer. And sugar feeds cancer cells. And we have cancer in our body all the time. We have these little blips in our DNA, and there's a cancer cell, and our immune system is programmed properly. We hope if your gut is healthy, then your immune system is healthy. And it goes after and it gets rid of those cells that had a DNA blip and are cancerous. Well, sugar, cancer cells consume 6 to 8 times more sugar than any other cell in your body. So you want to prevent cancer, get off sugar. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much power they actually have to prevent what I call health disasters or tragedies. And they chalk it up to, it's genetics. Well, actually, 98% of cancers are not genetically related.
And
98.
Actually, we have 80% control in the outcome of our gene expression.
At least.
Yeah.
Yes.
Isn't that great to know? Yeah.
Yes. It's a powerful point, Lori. Epigenetics speaks this beautiful scientific realm of epigenetics explains how that is true, how that's been proven, that we can upregulate healthy genes and downregulate the sick genes. Just because we have a gene for cancer does not mean we have to express it. And our
heart disease.
Yeah. Or heart disease, yes. Or diabetes.
Yeah.
Yes. Or obesity, or so autoimmune diseases.
Right.
Alzheimer's. Yeah. Exactly. So you bring up such a good point that people have so much more power and control over their health outcome than they realize, and then they're being taught by their doctors and social media. And sugar's one of them. And avoiding sugar is huge. It also really wires your brain for other addictions. It's such
a good point.
Strong chemical. Yeah. So you have some sugar, then you want some coffee, then you might want a cigarette, then you want some potato chips, and then you want some ice cream, and then you want da-da-da-da-da. And then pretty soon well, I don't really want to work out and I'm feeling depressed. And now it's harder for me to get motivated to share my passions in the world. And now I'm having more arguments with my spouse. And and it's just this spiral downward. And sugar plays a big part in that. And the keto diet does eliminate that. And it's not only eliminating the substance, it's also understanding ourselves and why we want to reach for that. And I talk to people and ask them a pointed question when they call themselves a sugar addict, or they're really hooked on sweet stuff, even if it's artificially sweetened. I like to point out and ask the question, where do you not experience the sweetness of life? Because I think we're reaching for sweet foods because we're missing our own sweetness in life.
That's really great. Yeah.
It's so important to have that exploration and go deep with your health coach to discover where are you masking deeper pain or deeper unmet needs that you're now reaching for sugar to try to soothe yourself. And it's something that I like to talk about and bring light to, and not to shame anyone, not to say it's bad, not to tell someone not to do it. But often when people heighten their awareness around it and understand the emotions underneath the cravings go away. They just disappear.
Mm-hmm. Well,
that's really
fun. Yeah, they don't call it comfort food for nothing, you know?
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, Kristin, you actually talk about gut health and how important that is in terms of keeping us healthy and not fat and sick, right? Mm-hmm. And so with gut health, if you could just give us a little bit of information on gut health, and then I'd love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about glyphosate and how that might be wrecking our health, essentially, and our weight.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. Your immune system, about 75% of your immune function comes from your gut, or your digestive system, your gut. And digestion actually starts in your mouth with chewing. And there are many, many factors and variables to a healthy gut. And one of them is chewing your food more, because it signals the release of pancreatic enzymes that help break down your food, as well as HCl, hydrochloric acid, in your stomach, which helps break food down. If you don't chew well, if you don't make enough enzymes, if you don't have enough HCl, then when that food gets moved to your small intestine, the particles are too large to be absorbed by the villi in your small intestine. And that can be a real problem. So when the gut is further damaged and those villi might be worn down, there might be gaps between them because you haven't been eating well, because you've been exposed to chemicals, because you've had stress in your life, because you've had trauma, because you've eaten too much dairy or sugar. All these things can impact how you absorb your nutrients. So maybe you have some leaky gut, and these food particles go into your immune system, go into your bloodstream, and your immune system identifies them as bad guys. So now you have an immune reaction against food, and it confuses your body, because your body wants to attack viruses and bacteria. It doesn't want to attack particles of food. That's unusual for your immune system. And when it does that for long enough, often it gets confused enough that it may start attacking its own tissues, which leads to an autoimmune disease over time. So having a healthy gut means having a healthy immune system. And with all of the disease happening that, in our very industrialized, wealthy country, it's shocking that more emphasis isn't put on the gut, because it could alleviate so many disease processes, including mental health stuff and Alzheimer's. The gut is known and researched. It's proven to be known as the second brain. You make more serotonin in your gut than you do your brain. The enteric nervous system is part of your nervous system that is in your gut. And if your central nervous system is cut off from your gut, your enteric nervous system still runs the show. You don't necessarily need your central nervous system for gut health, which is like a phenomenal discovery. And so taking care of the gut impacts so many parts of our health and wellness, physically and emotionally, psychologically, that it really merits attention and support and empowerment to keep it strong and healthy. So that's part one. Part two are glyphosate, which is a strong chemical that is found in Roundup, which is used in many, many countries, and as well as the United States. I am currently in Costa Rica, and we have had huge levels of glyphosates used in this country. I was in a small town and in a small hardware store picking up a shovel, and there was a big advertisement that if you bought Roundup, you got an extra free, big bottle of it that you could put into the sprayer. Yeah, they wear like these backpacks that have these sprayers on them. And if you bought one, you could get one for free. And there's this big ad, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is really a challenge because it stays in the soil. And with the heavy rains we have during the rainy season, it either stays in the soil or it runs into our water systems. It's a real problem. Just recently in Costa Rica alone, they have begun to outlaw it. And they say, if you see people spraying chemicals on the side of the road, please call this number. We want to stop this in our country because
that's fantastic.
It really is. It's just, it's slow in getting out there, but at least the government is taking a step in the right direction. Now in the US, things are still being used, and glyphosates are causing all sorts of health challenges. And we don't know everything that they do yet, but we do know they screw up your gut and your brain and your immune system. And it's a real
your weight
challenge
as well, because
absolutely,
your weight is controlled by your gut as well.
It absolutely is. The microbiome, the good guys, the good bacteria in your gut can actually, when those are in balance, help you lose weight, release weight naturally. It's often that people will gain weight when their microbiome, when there's an imbalance between the good guys and the bad guys in the gut, it can set you up to easily put more protective weight on your body. And adipose tissue often accumulates in response to something I call body burden, which I go into great detail in my third book that'll be coming out next year, I hope, or the following year. And that talks about blocks to healing, which are also very relevant for a block to weight loss. If you have an accumulation of toxins in your system, body burden in your system, those toxins are stored in adipose fat tissue, and it can be more challenging to release that weight.
Oh no, that's an absolute fact, and that's something that I know a lot of people. That's like another level of the understanding of weight loss are those factors specifically, for sure. Now, I can't believe what time it is because this show is flying by, which is a good thing. So
because we have a wonderful guest.
That's exactly what that means. So I guess to wrap it up, I'd like to ask you, like, how long does this like ketogenic gut repair process that you've come up with actually take to actually see like the results that we want, or actually know that we've taken great strides in healing our gut?
It depends on the person and their level of commitment. I believe that I want to meet people exactly where they are. And I believe that everyone is doing their very best with the tools they have. And some people and their personalities are, I am 100% in all the way. I'm going to go extreme. I'm throwing everything out in my pantry. I'm, going on a fast. I'm going to do all this right away. And they legitimately have the capacity to do that with ease. And then there are other people that need to take baby steps. So I like to meet people all along that spectrum and really honor where they are. So I say it depends on the person and their level of commitment and interest in really upgrading or up-leveling their health, their nutrition, and their life in order to reach their health and or weight goals. So for some people, they can start to see results within 1 week. And other people, it may take them 2 months. Mm-hmm. It depends on their level of commitment and if they're really following my program, which is outlined in my book. And if they're getting stuck in some of the pitfalls, like, oh, well, I'm not eating anything for 5 days in a row and I'm having no caloric intake, I can't understand why I'm not losing weight. Well, I can help with that. All right. We can explain that, right? Omar, as a health coach, you could easily coach someone through that. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of depends on the person. But usually within a week, people are starting to feel differently. Within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month, people are getting into ketosis. They're noticing water weight is falling away. They're noticing fat weight is falling away. They're noticing they're losing inches, whether the scale says they've lost 20 pounds or 40 pounds, they'll likely be losing a lot of inches. My sister just started a keto type diet, and I've been guiding her a little bit. And in the first 2 weeks, she lost almost 10 pounds. And she didn't really notice a huge difference on the scale. I mean, 10 pounds is nice, but what she noticed is that she's feeling different in her body. Just 10 pounds. And she's already like, oh, I just feel different. I have a little more energy. And so, again, it depends on the person. It depends on their level of commitment. Real gut repair can take about 2 to 6 months, depending on the person and what layers are involved in terms of their gut dysfunction. If someone has a lot of food sensitivities that have been hidden, and they continue to eat those foods even though they seem healthy, it might be more challenging for them. So I guide people through investigating that for themselves in my book and what tests I recommend and cutting out certain foods in the beginning of gut repair to ensure that you have a higher success rate, like nuts, for example. Nuts can be healthy, especially if they're being soaked and sprouted, which can be a little labor intensive. But in gut repair for the first 2 months, I ask people to omit nuts if they're open to doing that, to give their gut a little more rest. Nuts can be hard to digest. They're high in lectins. They can cause inflammation. They're high in L-arginine, so they can cause viruses or latent viruses to rear their heads, and that can cause challenges with their gut and their immune function, and that can impact how they are in the program. So I say omit these foods for the first few months. And then when you're ready to bring them back on board because you've done what I've recommended and your gut is doing better, then we can better assess how you're doing with them. So the gut and the body is amazing. We are regenerative in nature, and our body wants to heal and thrive. We just need to remove the blocks and give it what it needs to do so. So I think the body can heal very quickly when we're taking the right approach, and when we're also looking at all levels of mind, body, and spirit. Like I said, it's not just the food. It's also looking at how we think of food and how we ingest food and why we're reaching for certain foods. There's some interesting science behind eating alone, and that people who eat alone may gain more weight than people who are eating in community with friends or family. They may also have higher rates of depression. So there are lots of different pieces that I outline in my book that guide someone through that process and can meet them where they are, whether they're one baby step at a time or all the way gung-ho, and can really help them get the results they're desiring.
Mm-hmm. It is definitely a great book. Can you do us a favor, Kristin, and just let us know where we can get the book, and of course your social media handles and any way that we can keep up with what you're doing, including your website.
And all 3 books.
Yeah.
Yes. So my website is KristinGrayceMcGary.com, and I'll spell it because my middle name is spelled differently. It's KristinGrayceMcGary.com, C-O-M. And if you go on my website, you can, from the homepage, order 2 of the 3 books already. They're both for pre-sale. The first one gets mailed out, I think, January 2nd or something. I just got an announcement.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's very exciting. I'm also going on some book signing tours. And so if you join my free email list, you'll get recipes every month, and you'll also hear about my book tours. I'm going to be in Texas. I'm going to be in LA. I'm going to be in San Diego and Denver and all over the place. And I am featuring my new exclusive keto chocolate at all of my book signings. So come and taste the delicious, nutrient-dense, yummy, healthy chocolate. You don't have to eat chocolate and feel guilty with this. It's really, really amazing. So I'm
good for your gut health
as well. It is. It is.
Right.
I'm also on Facebook and I'm on Instagram under my name. I'm known as the Health and Lifestyle Alchemist, and I would love to be in touch with anyone who is on this journey of releasing weight and looking for empowerment and looking for encouragement and looking for a community of people who care about their health and really want to level up.
That sounds fantastic. Kristin, it's been wonderful having you here today. You know, I know a lot of people got a lot out of what you were talking about here regarding every aspect of our health and mental health, essentially. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Lori and Omar. I
Absolutely
love sharing and really appreciate both of you and everything you're sharing with the world. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
All right, Kristin, have a great night.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of This Podcast Burns Fat. We're so excited to have you as a listener, and we're hoping that you've really enjoyed the content as well. And if you did, please run over to iTunes and provide a rating and or review. It will go a long way in helping us continuously build our listenership up so that we can provide you with the excellent content regarding fat loss, weight management, and just an overall healthy lifestyle. Thanks so much. Have a great night.